So first, I will start us off with some introductions. So my name is Jay Garcia. I'm our digital community organizer here. I work mostly on justice-related things. I've worked with Dream for about a year and a half now. This is Soren. He is my assistant. We're super excited to have you here this evening. We're really looking forward to diving into social media for advocacy and release our new toolkit that we have come up with for the Equal Act. I will pass it over to my colleague, John.
Hi, everybody. I am John Fabricius, and I am the digital campaigner here at the Justice Program at Dream.org. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, the same locale as Jay. So you're getting it from the hot Southwest today, and I'll send it over to my buddy Harrison.
Hey, everyone. Great to see you. My name's Harrison Ribeiro. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the senior organizing manager. I'm based in Oakland, California, where the Dream.org offices are, and I work across all of our issue areas, helping with our membership program and strategy design for how we mobilize folks. So I'm excited to be here and learn along with you.
And I will go ahead and pass it over to John so he can give you more information on Equal, the reason we're here.
Yeah. So the Equal Act, many of you may know, we've talked about it for over a year now. This is the second legislative cycle that we've been in with the Equal Act. And the Equal Act is created and aims to remove the sentencing disparity between crack cocaine and powder cocaine. And so what happened is, going back really quickly, going back to the 80s when crack cocaine first really kind of exploded in the culture. In the mid 80s, there was a lot of sensationalized news stories. There was a lot of problems that came secondary to that issue. And it was something where lawmakers, federal lawmakers, wrote legislation more from a reactionary than from a better purpose. We'll say that. We'll say working reactionarily instead of a better purpose. And so they wrote a law that by every metric is just really a heinous, horrible law. In 1986, they passed it, and it was a law that said, if you got convicted or arrested and convicted of possessing crack cocaine, the sentence you would receive for 1 gram of crack cocaine would be the same sentence somebody that had 100 grams of powder cocaine would get. And so there's no difference between the two drugs, between crack, or there's very little difference. There's no difference in the actual drug itself. The cocaine in powder cocaine is the exact same cocaine that's in crack. The difference is that by adding some baking powder and some water, then crack becomes smokable. And that's the only difference. It's just a different way to ingest the drug. And so there's no difference from it as far as the drug itself. And so the sentencing disparity is additionally heinous because of that fact. So when you then look at the results of it and you look back at some of the other issues, and you can see that this really was targeted and significantly disproportionately impacted the Black community exponentially higher than it did any other community. But there were other people, other communities that were damaged by this. And so we had that bill, that 100-to-1 sentencing disparity for people that were convicted of crack cocaine, going all the way from 1986 all the way through 2010. And there was a law passed in 2010 that reduced it to an 18-to-1 disparity. But that law only applied to people that were convicted that day or moving forward from the enactment of the law. Go forward a couple of years to the First Step Act. And the First Step Act was signed into law in 2016 by President Donald Trump. I'm sorry, 2018 by President Donald Trump. And that made the 18-to-1 retroactive to everybody that was in prison already. And so that bill, that law, the First Step Act, actually released people that were already sentenced on this and got them out of prison early. What we want to do with the Equal Act is finalize that, is take it to a one-to-one as where it should be this whole time, and get those people out of prison that have been doing disproportionately more time than their counterparts that are convicted of the same amount of drug. So that's what we're doing. The Equal Act is extraordinarily important. It is the law that will undo one of the most overtly and blatant racist elements of our criminal justice system at the federal level, and will impact thousands of lives. So I think there's about 8,000 people that it would impact their lives. So it's an extraordinarily important piece of legislation, and the urgency is now. And so where we are on the process is that the bill itself is sitting in the Senate Judiciary Committee in the United States Congress. And we needed to get what's called a markup and get out of that committee, get voted out of that committee. And that's where the energy is right now. It's we're moving into September, so it's getting late in the legislative cycle. So the urgency is now. We need to create as much energy across the country as we can and focus that on the United States Senate, specifically on the Judiciary Committee, and get that bill heard, get it a vote, and get it out of committee. And so that's what we're focusing on here, and where this social media advocacy will come into play.
All righty. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. John always has the best rundowns that kind of simplify everything. So I do appreciate that from you. In 2023, a lot of people have shifted into social media rather than using some of the older grassroots organizing tools, which of course will always have their time and place, but social media is one of those outlets that you can use for organizing that can be incredibly effective for some of these reasons listed here. So the first one being rapid information dissemination. So swift sharing of messages, stories, and information, and prompt awareness creation for critical issues. So it's incredibly effective when you're working on something like Equal, where things can change really quickly and you need to get information out quick, fast, and to as many people as possible. It's also extremely cost effective, which is great for a lot of people who are grassroots organizers. Because, I know when I'm advocating in Arizona, I don't have, hundreds of dollars to spend on ads and things like that. So social media is a really great way to get that information out, for anybody who's resource limited. And then 4.8 billion social media users worldwide. So you're going to reach, or you have the potential to reach, a ton of people. That's more than half of the world's population that's now using social media. And as you see in everyday life, a lot of people are, almost like addicted to their phones. So it's a really great way to get it to where as many people as possible are seeing it. Real-time responsiveness. So it's instant communication for unfolding events and emergencies, like or different, like 911 level things that can be happening at the legislature that you need to get out there. And it allows you to get feedback and questions and concerns in real time, which is really great, especially when it comes to the legislature, where a lot of people, they want the information, they want the updates, but they aren't getting it through traditional channels. So it really allows you to connect with people. And that kind of ties into the networking and collaboration. So it allows you to facilitate communications among advocates. I have been able to meet people across the country. I know John Harrison have as well. It's a really great people to meet, or a great way to meet like-minded people and start building up, nationwide coalitions and build power based on those connections that you're making. That also ties into the interactive community building. You're able to directly engage with your audiences. When you're advocating as like an individual person rather than an organization, sometimes you don't have all of the power behind you that an organization may have. So it makes it really, or a lot easier anyways, to build connections with people. It's also really incredible for visual storytelling purposes. You can make it emotionally compelling. People naturally, just from a psychology standpoint, like they're going to connect when they can see a person rather than just words. And then that again ties into data-driven strategies. So you have incredible access to free analytics through all of these platforms. So you can see what's performing, what isn't performing, and kind of start to tailor that content based on what you see is really taking off. And then education and awareness, that is a huge part of what we're doing, right? Especially with Equal, you have a lot of people who may not even realize that some of these really horrific mandatory minimums are still in place, and that there are still people in prison who are serving decades, some people really for the rest of their lives because of these unfair laws that were put in place. So sometimes it's just planting that seed in someone's brain. They see one piece of content and then something clicks for them. So hopefully, some of us will end up being the people who make that click in someone's mind. And then cultural and social influence. Social media plays a huge role in a lot of people's lives, as I had stated before. Social media plays a huge role in shaping attitudes and societal norms. It's incredible, really, the impact that it has on society. So by playing into it, you can really help shape that as well. So I will pass it over very quickly to John to talk a little bit about the role that Equal plays with social media, and then also a little bit about understanding social media platforms.
Yeah, and I think that there's a couple of points in what Jay was talking about that are extraordinarily important, especially here on Equal, but also on any of the campaigns that you may buy into locally or on the national level, which is, when she was talking about the affordability of this platform, right? Social media, there's, I'm using the same social media as Walmart or Sears or, or I guess Sears isn't around anymore, sorry, it's showing my age, but Walmart or Target or any of these other large billion-dollar multinational corporations. We're all the same, right? It democratizes that, right? And you can get to people, and Target's got to compete with you on engaging content as well. And so the ability of social media, I mean, Gutenberg made the press in the 1500s, and that changed the world when he changed the press. Social media has changed it as well inside the digital age, as far as our ability to communicate with each other and to communicate on these extraordinarily important issues, right? So we all have agency, and we all have the tools now to really affect change. So when we talk about, strategies with the Equal Act specifically, it goes back to what I was talking about a moment ago, right? We have a bill, and it's currently sitting in the United States Senate, and it's sitting inside of a committee called the Judiciary Committee. And that committee is populated by a chairman and members of that committee. And those members of those committees are senators from the states, right? And so there's senators from California and Mississippi and Illinois and all of that on this committee. So us being able to use our social media that these lawmakers, their assistants, and everybody around them, the organizers that are around them, they're also seeing, right? And so they need to hear that. But also other advocates are seeing it. The person next door or the person 500 miles away that may have never even understood any of this, or maybe in a thread that's following you on some completely other different topic, but now is going to be exposed to hearing this really important issue. This is why it is absolutely crucial and absolutely important for us to all get out there on Equal Act and all of the campaigns that we want to make change. Being part of that change is using our voice and using our agency on social media to make that happen. And so we'll talk now, we're going to go in to start talking about some of the platforms and the best ways to utilize those platforms to reach people and to mobilize them. So I see a question here. I have physical issues. Breakout rooms, okay, yeah, no problem on that. That's no problem at all. We will make sure that everybody gets all the information and being able to participate on that. Thank you for flagging that.
There's also another question that I think maybe just to put it into perspective for people. So it was asked, will Equal Act impact only people sentenced in federal, or will it also affect state? So federal legislature, it's going to affect the BOP, the Bureau of Prisons. However, we, as we're working on different legislation here at DREAM, we really want to encourage people to take control of what they're interested in changing and, start to build community in your area and get that buy-in. And you can it's very much a possibility to run that legislation on a state level if it's relevant to the states that are, or the laws that are currently in place in your state. So that is another way that, social media can really tie in, is starting to get like-minded people together. So you can also run these things on a state level. I'm a big, big, big fan of taking legislation that's being ran in other areas and then running it in your area as well. I think that that's a great way to kind of start doing not blanket reform, but for lack of a better word, extending these reforms elsewhere.
Yeah, and the only touchstone on that would be at the state level is, does the state that you're living in or that you want to impact have a sentencing disparity for crack cocaine? And many of the states did. Many of the states followed that mission or that model early on. I think we do here in Arizona, and there is, and because of the Equal Act and the First Step Act that have been addressing this, there are people here in Arizona that have, proposed legislation to remove that. It may be like that same way in your state. There may not be a sentencing disparity, but also, as Jay was saying, this doesn't, although this is already dialed in specifically to the crack versus powder cocaine sentencing disparity, it doesn't mean that there's elements of this campaign or this approach that would not apply to other state campaigns as well. So whether it's a 1-to-1 fit or whether it's like a 90% or an 80% fit, we can use these items. And again, going to Jay's point, this is why we want to talk about them. This is certainly why we want to get it on social media, and certainly why we want to get it on multiple platforms, because multiple platforms have different pluses and minuses to them that will increase or impede our ability to send these messages. So going into that, I think one of the first ones that everybody is aware of, Meta, Facebook. Meta actually owns both Facebook and Instagram. So why, what's the difference between Facebook and Instagram? Why would they own two different social media companies? And well, what are they doing with them, right? So there is an approach on that. So Facebook is really good and ideal for longer posts, for sharing articles, for fostering discussions in groups. And it's great for visual content in the form of stories. And so with Facebook, you have that much more, you have a specific community, a neighborhood of friends and people that you've known, that you've let in. And maybe also Facebook has groups. So maybe you've joined some groups on criminal justice reform or prison reform or sentencing reform, those type of groups, from people that weren't necessarily your friends or something prior to joining Facebook. So it gives you a great opportunity to get into those communities and get into focused communities, and also gives you an opportunity to post on your feed. Or if you were to start an organization, or if you have an organization, you can also get a business feed, right? Another entire entity on Facebook, and post that way. And that's what we have, right? So in addition to Jay and I working for Dream.org, we also both work for a local nonprofit here in Arizona called ATAC, which is about oversight of the Arizona Department of Corrections. And on ATAC, we have our own individual ATAC Facebook channel, and that's all that channel is dedicated to. And so that's all we talk about on that channel. We post all of our images, we post all of our updates and everything on that Facebook channel. And then on our private channels, I share that content around with my friends, and I jump into groups in my private capacity and participate in those groups. So it's a great ability and method to communicate with a lot of people that you know really well, and people that you might not know well, but in a really good long form content ability with video and all of the other things. Instagram, being the partner, is much more image and video centric, and is a really good supplement to Facebook to reach a broader audience who may not necessarily be in your friend pool, but you want to get to influence and bring people up as well. And so posting that on visual content gives a lot of people opportunities to participate in that as well. And of course, Facebook, the way that it's set up, you can create a post and you can share on both platforms at the same time. They've got that ability. So it's an excellent tool for any aspect of that that you want to get done. Another big one is Twitter, obviously, or it's called X now. And it's going through a lot of changes. Some people like it, some people don't. I think that there is still a lot of value on X, and I use it all the time. Again, this is where I have a personal account, and we have an ATAC account for our nonprofit, and one that's dedicated specifically to talking about ATAC issues and oversight and prison reform issues. And then my personal one, I will comment both on dream.org stuff, and I will repost it. I will repost the ATAC stuff that we put out there. And then I will be in conversations all the time talking to people about various issues on there. The one really great thing about Twitter, as opposed to many of the other platforms, is that lawmakers, policymakers, reporters, academics in these fields, all of them are on Twitter, and really, build communities with each other and have that. So you have the ability on Twitter to post something and it to hit academics that are, thinking about your issue all the time, and other social justice organizers thinking about it, and policymakers from an out of state. And we've had that where we might put a post out about prison reform, and then we'll have somebody from that used to run a prison in a different state come in and give us some ideas. That's what's incredible about Twitter, Twitter, is being able to really get to everybody. Instagram, we talked about, again, a very good visual platform. It's suited for storytelling through images, videos, and Instagram stories. Very good for your visual appeal, very good to get, they say a picture is 1,000 words, so you can really get a lot of information out. And then videos, the stories that you can get out on that are incredible. So that's an excellent platform for that. And then TikTok, and TikTok's kind of come in and just really been a major disruptor. Again, primarily focusing on the video aspect, images and videos, but primarily more video with TikTok. And the thing with TikTok is that it's the way that the algorithm is set is that you can really, really generate a very large audience very quickly with TikTok. And it has to do with the way that the content is disseminated in everybody's channels and all that. So TikTok is an excellent one, again, excellent for grabbing short, attention-grabbing videos that can go viral, reach younger, broader audiences. I think that they just took up, and I'm not sure if this is a different version of it, but I think that they just took the videos up to 10 minutes. Somebody, Jay or Harrison, can correct me on that, but I think it was 3 minutes, and I think they just took it to 10 minutes. But those videos, those 3-minute videos, are incredibly powerful. And like I said, they can take off to exponential amounts of numbers. So TikTok is an excellent platform as well. It is at 10 now. Thank you for confirming. So yeah, you can get up to 10-minute videos out on TikTok. Okay, yeah, I think that's it on platforms. There's other platforms out there as well. YouTube is a great one for getting video content out if you're shooting videos as well. It is a staple. We have for Dream and ATAC, we have a YouTube channel that's really good for long form videos, longer content, those type of things. You have other alternatives like Rumble is a good one for YouTube. That's another alternative that a lot of people are using now. There's other alternatives to Facebook and Twitter and those. And those are coming, Mastodon's one. Those ones can be more, ideologically, constrained and tight. But maybe that's where you want to go with it. Maybe you need to try to find conservatives, or maybe you need to try to find progressives to come in on your thing. So those other platforms are potential options as well. Jay?
Yeah, of course. So with social media, and once we go through a couple of these quick things, we're going to show a couple examples of some TikToks, just because like what we're seeing is video content is what is like catching the most viewers at this point. Like statistically, there's been a lot of studies done on it, and video content is kind of king. But again, I'll just briefly go over this because we also have it in the actual toolkit itself, and I want to make sure we have time to hop over to that because it's very equal specific. But the main thing that is going to be most important as you are creating content is making sure that your content is compelling. And one thing that's really important there is making sure that your message is really, really clear. You know, we've condensed down some key points about Equal Act and its impact. And that will be very helpful, that you'll be able to see in the toolkit. Visual content. So this is important as well, creating visually appealing graphics or infographics. You can do statistics, comparisons, call to actions. I'm a huge fan of Canva, so I use that even when I was very first using it, like various simple graphics, you know, were very effective. But I really think that video content is, again, king. I see much more success with that over graphics even. So with that video content, it's just crafting short, impactful videos where you're discussing the issue, sharing personal stories, and emphasizing urgency. Like one of my top performing TikToks was just me giving the history of prisons, and it did surprisingly well. So by doing this and creating your own content, you know, you're able to share your experiences, poems, stories, you know, whatever it is that is your connection. And the hope is that in like explaining your connection to the issue, that you're going to be planting those seeds, or someone else will connect with that, you know, and kind of send them on their journey of advocacy. And it really is interesting to see with campaigns like this how quickly it can pop off, you know, and become a massive movement. And we've seen that before with things like Me Too, Black Lives Matter. There are a ton of different, you know, examples of that. But, you know, we're hoping that we can get there with Equal. One way to ensure that that happens is the use of hashtags. In the toolkit, we have some hashtags that are like pre-created that can help. That way, if people are specifically searching for content related to this, if it's tagged in your captions, you know, people will be able to see that. So types of content, John went over a lot of that for you. You really have text-based posts, visual content, video content, or user stories. I want to ensure we have enough time to hop into the toolkit. So I will just pass it over to John really quickly for engagement strategies and a call to action. And then after that, we'll just hop right into the toolkit so that we have enough time.
Yeah, and I'll just do this briefly as well so we can focus on the toolkit. So, you know, there's really good engagement strategies and you want people to engage on your posts, right? So, because you want them grasping the content, or you want them to follow the call to action that you may have in there, maybe a link to go sign a petition or something like that. So how do you get people to engage, and how do you do that? Well, one thing is ask them questions, pose questions related to the issue to encourage discussions and gather diverse perspectives. I got to tell you how extraordinarily powerful that is and impactful that can be, because we go into these issues. You know, I'm first of amongst everybody that does this. It goes in there with some pre-thought out and preconceived notions of how things should go and how things should change. And I think I've got all of the ideas and thought of all of the concerns. Man, it turns out I haven't necessarily. And so just talking about that, opening up that conversation, asking questions, getting back responses can be really, really helpful, not only for advancing your issue, but for addressing any potential things you're not aware of or thinking about. And it also gives those people that are engaging a sense of participating. It gives them something that they're engaging in as well, and is part of that community building and organizing that you want to do. Responding to comments, promptly reply to comments and messages to foster a sense of community engagement. And listen, you know, we haven't talked about this too much. You're probably going to get some comments in there that you really don't like. I cannot remember a post that we have done for at ATEC, especially because I'm focused on that one the most. I can't think of one that we put out there talking just about the need for independent oversight where we haven't gotten some comments back that are aggravating or frustrating, or, you know, obviously done by somebody that's trying to troll us or something like that. It happens. You just got to move off of that, let that roll off your back, move forward, decide whether or not that this is somebody that's trying to blow up the conversation or just trying to, or has a different perspective. And there's different approaches on all of that. But reply to those comments if you can, get into them. If they're negative, there's no reason to continue to reinforce that. But if it's something that's just an issue where you may or may not necessarily agree, it's good to have that conversation. So you want to respond to that. And also it tells the people there that you're active in this thing, in your social media platform. Storytelling. There is nothing more that people like than storytelling. People empathize with people, right? We empathize with other living creatures. And so we want to hear those stories. People want to hear the story. You know, if I sat there like Bueller and said, 16.7% of people, there's going to be some people that like that kind of information. But when we tell that story about how that 16.7 impacted somebody's life, and impeded them or hurt them or moved them forward, whatever it is, that's what we can attach to. That's what we want to rally behind. That's what we want to fix as human beings. We're social beings. And so we want those stories. We want to know how people are impacted and how we can improve their lives. And then live sessions, conduct live streams to address questions, provide updates, and maintain direct contact with supporters. Live events are exceptional. Again, really good for community building, really good for engagement and moving things forward. You'll get smaller, more condensed audiences, but generally the ones that are attending those type of events are the ones that you're ready to activate up your ladder of engagement and get moving forward because they've showed up and they participated to live events. So those are great ones as well. Calls to actions, if you have a petition, you definitely want to have a link in there and focus people on that call to action. So here's the issue, here's why it needs to change, here's how we change it, here's your solution, go do it. And that's what you want to do, and that's how you should be structuring your posts, right? Thinking about it as pushing people into that call to action so that we can solve this problem. Content sharing, always ask somebody, sign this petition or take this action, show up to this event, and please share it with your family and friends. Post it on not only this platform, but post it on every platform. You always want to have a share in there. So you'd like to have a call to action and something to share with. And then contact lawmakers, provide step-by-step instructions on how supporters can effectively reach out to their senators, emphasizing their role in achieving the change. In this case, and when we're talking about equal, that's exactly what we want to do, right? We want people to be focusing on the Senate at this point because that's where the bill is and that's where we need the energy to move the bill. So we want people to focus on that. You can say that in your social media posts. Hey, everybody, we need to call the U.S. Senate and get this thing moving forward. Whatever that is. And like we're going to the toolkit, we've got some specifics on that, but you want that there, right? You want to give people the opportunity. You're talking to them, now ask them to do something and make sure you're being very clear about what it is that you want them to do. Jay?
Yeah, so I think before we jump into the toolkit, I have a couple of examples of TikToks that I've seen that I just happened to scroll by and they caught my eye. I chose specifically to show the TikToks just because that is kind of the trending thing right now in video content, but also, it's the same format that you can use in both Instagram Reels or Instagram and Facebook Stories, which is the video portion of those platforms. So I will let Harrison start these quick videos.
Can you tell the difference between these two pieces of banana nut bread? My great-grandma's timeless recipe gives very precise instructions of baking powder, but I ran out, so I made this one with baking soda instead. They don't look that much different, and they both taste incredible. Now imagine if you made the mistake of using baking soda in a recipe, but it cost you years of your life. Many people in prison have been sentenced much more harshly for crack cocaine convictions than powder cocaine convictions, even though the two drugs, like this banana nut bread, are virtually the same. The disparity in sentencing between the two chemically identical substances has not reduced drug use or even improved public safety. Instead, it only serves to disproportionately harm communities of color. Too many nonviolent drug offenders are sitting in prison with no opportunity for a second chance. We are trying to change that. Today, I'm excited to announce a bipartisan effort led by Dream.org to pass the Equal Act. The Equal Act is a common sense reform that will end sentence disparity between crack and powder cocaine. We can reduce incarceration and allocate money towards reentry services, recovery resources, and other community-led programs. Baking soda might change my great-grandma's banana bread, but it shouldn't make a difference of whether or not someone gets a second chance to live a successful life. I encourage you to take a stand and join me with Dream.org's Equal Act campaign by texting EQUAL to 97483 or visiting the link in my bio.
Make sure you text equal to 97483 if you haven't yet.
That's right.
Prison in 1996. They sentenced me to life plus 25 years. I didn't need a life sentence as a first-time nonviolent offender to learn a lesson, but I had to keep going because I knew that I was going home one day. I look at my freedom totally as a miracle from God. I had spoken at Mike.com. Someone who Kim Kardashian follows retweeted that video, and she tweeted out, "This is so unfair," and it went super viral. Kim Kardashian and President Donald Trump, they were on two totally different ways of thinking, and they came together for me. It starts with us talking to people, putting all differences aside. Who knows, we may be able to save a life also.
I mean, and you cannot emphasize that enough, right? It was 4 or 5 words on a single post, and it got the eyes of somebody who reposted it, and it took off. You never know who's looking at your stuff, and you never know their power to amplify your stuff. That's why you want to get it out there.
Drug reform? Check this out. We all know it's time to end America's war on drugs. Well, okay. Most of us, that is. Now, see, one of the most unjust pieces of this war is the difference between the sentencing of crack cocaine versus powder cocaine. These are the same drugs, no chemical difference. They're just as bad for you. Yet one has an 18-to-1 sentencing disparity, meaning that just 1 gram of crack cocaine is sentenced the same as 18 grams of powder cocaine. Now, why is this a problem? Because low-level drug offenders end up getting punished like kingpins, disproportionately affecting low-income communities in both urban areas and rural areas, taking federal resources away to prosecute trivial cases instead of high-level traffickers, where the crime really exists. That's why House Democrats are advancing the Equal Act through Congress, so we can make sure that both drugs are treated the same and keep law enforcement focused on the real problems. Thank you.
And on that one, you know, we view it differently. I don't really like to make like the differentiating, or I don't really like to differentiate between, you know, quote unquote kingpins versus street level dealers. But that one is a really good example of like using a trending sound. That way people who aren't even looking at Equal may just come across it because of that trending sound. So anyone who goes to the SpongeBob Tomfoolery Dante 9K remix, there's a potential for them to come across that video. And I've come across a lot of random stuff that way. So again, you never know how someone could come across the content that you're making.
This is pretty spot on. The war on drugs started in 1971. Richard Nixon implemented it, but it wasn't until the 1980s when Ronald Reagan, of course Reagan, was president, and we had the crack cocaine epidemic in America that all of the prison population really just started to take off like a rocket ship. Just to prove I know what I'm talking about, I wrote a thesis on this when I was in college. You can go find it on my LinkedIn, the publication's there. Any law that is made about recreational drugs, illegal drugs, whatever, disproportionately impacts people of color in minority neighborhoods. I'm using crack as my example. That's what I wrote my paper on. So when crack first got to America and they didn't know what to do with it, they penalized it insanely tough. It was called the 100-to-1 rule. So if you had 1 gram of crack, it was the equivalent of having 100 grams of cocaine. Sounds insane, right? Well, that means that if one person spent $10 to buy a G of crack on the street, they're going to jail for the rest of their life. And you know who they would go target? Same thing with quotas. Poor inner city people where they could go see the drug deals happen on the street, as opposed to taking the time to go do an entire stakeout and ideally try to catch some like bigger kingpin drug dealer in like a wealthy suburb. Also, fun fact, we didn't used to be illegal in America. It wasn't illegal until the 1930s because of all the Mexican immigrants that were coming across the border that would bring marijuana with them. And so the government made weed super illegal so they could have a reason to stop them, seize it, and then send them back so they wouldn't take jobs. 3/4 of the people in jail for drug offenses are Black or Latino, and 92% of them are male. The war on drugs has always been a war on poor minorities in inner cities. I could do this all day, so I will. These are going to keep coming.
So that's a good example of like one, he used his credentials. He's written a thesis. He's an expert in this area, and also just shows that you don't have to be directly impacted to talk about an issue. I run into that a lot where people are like, well, I'm not directly impacted, so I don't have a personal story. But you don't always have to have a personal story to talk about things that you have seen happening in our country, that are affecting everyone, really. It's, a ripple effect. It's affected everyone. So those are just a couple examples of different types of TikToks. So, kind of a little bit humor based. You've got the informational type. That's usually the way that I lean. You got a little bit of everything there. So if you would like to pull up the the toolkit, we can run very quickly through the toolkit. We're kind of running late on time, so I will just briefly go over this with you. So this is our 2023 Equal Active Social Media Toolkit. I will go ahead and drop it in the chat for you now. Here we go. Okay, so within this toolkit, to make it easy for everyone, I have started it off with some tips and tricks. So personalizing the issue, educate and inform, using those visuals like we talked about before, empowering your audience. So for this specifically here with Equal, the current goal that we have is trying to get people to sign our petition. So we work closely with a lot of these congressmen and women who are working on this or who we're trying to get on board. So by signing that petition, we're really able to show that we do have community buy-in with this, and that it's something that the constituents really are asking for. And then collaborate and amplify. So that's, engaging with other people as you can. Great way to do that is by stitching videos. I don't have enough time to dive into that, but next time when we run our full social media training, I will have that information for everybody. Engage in
And if folks want extra inspiration on just how to approach an effective social media post, Jay is gonna post her information in the chat later, so you can get her pointers, tips, and tricks, and she'll get you on the right footing.
Yeah, that's really what I'm hoping from this, is that in your breakout rooms, you can kind of start to brainstorm and kick ideas back and forth with the people in your breakout room of, how can I personally make content that would drive people to sign this petition so we can get this over the line while also educating people. And then, the link that I have is for a 30-minute one-on-one. And honestly, it doesn't even have to be social media related. Anything kind of justice related. I'm here to kick around ideas and build stuff out. If you have state work that you're interested in doing, different things like that. So back into this. So here are the tags. If you'd like to tag us in your videos, that information's right there. For Twitter, I'll actually change that so that it also says X now that they've changed the name. So those are our tags. You can find all of those. So now we get into the meat and potatoes. So it dives in a little bit into why video matters, which we had went over in the initial portion of our conversation. It really boils down to educating, inspiring, and empowering people. That really is our goal, is planting those seeds so that we are encouraging others to join the fight as well. So I won't go over each of the additional scripts, but just a quick run over. So I have included a 60-second video script, a 90-second video script, and a 120-second video script. It's just a very basic let's rally behind equal type thing, you can either use that directly, or you can, you know, infuse your story into it, or make it into your own. For Twitter and X, I just edited that for you. We do have some pre-made tweets with the link to the petition. And then for Instagram, some captions if you want to post with a picture or a graphic that you have. Again, there's the link to the equal petition. And then I also have some Facebook language down at the bottom. Essentially, you know, the main call to action is really creating videos to get people to sign this petition. The more signatures that we have, and I'm not sure how many we have right now. John is typically the man behind the mirror or the man behind the
curtain.
The man behind the curtain for all of our petition stuff. But I know that we have been gaining, you know, a lot of good traction there, and we would love to see more.
Is media/entertainment likely to result in more impact through storytelling versus affecting change via senior state federal AG contacts?
I think it's a mixture of the two.
Mm-hmm.
I think that media and entertainment definitely has its place as like a really important corner of power. Sadly, you know, I mean, I'll be blunt, it's, you know, kind of sad sometimes that the famous people can get things across that us regular folk may not be able to. But those strong relationships that you can build with those types of content or contacts can be incredibly valuable. So I think it's both. I think that if you can't get media and entertainment onto your issue, I don't think that that's, you know, like the end all be all of a campaign. Like what Harrison said, media entertainment can help galvanize support, which can lead to more actions. So it's always great, you know, when you can suddenly get an issue to boom, big in the world. That is always great. But those, you know, don't underestimate those connections with politicians, AG, county attorneys, all of those different types of things, depending on what you're working on. Those definitely play a role.
Yeah, exactly. One flag too that came out of our group that I thought was really good too is potentially, you know, any blowback, not necessarily like from what we consider trolls or, you know, people that are acrimonious, but just coworkers or, you know, your employment or your job because you're posting on a particular issue or supportive of a particular issue. And that can be a real thing. And especially that can be a real thing for everybody. But of course, those of us that are directly impacted or formerly incarcerated, you know, we might have release, we might be on parole or probation and have some concerns that way. And also have, you know, that whether and those concerns can go across the spectrum, right? They can be fears of retaliation. They can also be fears of isolation at your work or thinking that you're advancing a cause that's, you know, that other people don't agree with, and that can cause problems. We appreciate that. We go through that as well. I mean, Jay and I are both directly impacted, and we've had to deal with that a lot. And so it's a thing. I think that we in this time and age know that there's a lot of negative stuff online and through social media, but there's the positive of it is really beneficial, and I think outweighs that negative part of it. But if you do have those concerns, there are options with the social media platforms to create different identities or to obfuscate your name necessarily and all that kind of stuff. Multiple or most of the platforms have the ability to create that and give you that separation so that it doesn't land on you. And those are options that you should seek out if you're concerned about those, for sure.
I always joke that my name is so long, my legal name is so long that I have like 700 aliases that I can go buy online when I need to be a little bit more private. And I saw, Jim, you raised your hand.
Yes, y'all, please be patient with me. I'm having a little congestion in my chest, so my voice is going in and out. One of the TikToks that you showed with Trump and that one, can somebody send that to me? RAG is hosting a training at the Little Rock State House in November the 8th, and it's an open forum with Arkansas Stop Overdose Summit. And I think that that would be great to see. Tim Griffin is our AG. I'm in Arkansas. For those who don't know, my name is Jim. And I think that would be great to send him, or I don't know if y'all are aware of that this event is going on. It's a free event open to the public. And Tim Griffin, he is always willing to listen. I have been to several of his events, and he do draw a lot of people. And of course, this is Republican land, and I'm pretty sure we can use some more Republican support on this. I know it's bipartisan already, but a little bit more won't hurt. And so just having that strategically, however you wanted to campaign, utilize that in your campaign during that time will probably, I think, will be a good thing.
I really appreciate everybody coming here, and I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing content coming out from everybody on the call. I'll be sending out an email, and then I'll also follow up to see, you know, if you have created anything, if you've released anything yet. And I'll definitely make sure to follow up with everyone on the call, see if you need any help or any guidance. But I think that even with this smaller group, you know, if we all put in a little bit of effort towards getting some content out to get people to sign that petition, you know, you never know who will see it. So I appreciate everybody's time, and I hope you have a great evening. I hope to see some more one-on-ones coming in, and we will be catching up with everybody soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, folks. Have a great night.